Alright, I am back with another video, and this is another build request. Now, this is going to be a Mystic Theurge, I don't know how to say it, but what this essentially is it is a mix of Divine casting and Arcane casting, so Divine Magic, Holy Magic, then, you know, Mystic stuff or, like, Elemental stuff. Lots and lots of different combinations of magic that can be used by this class. It's from Pathfinder, I believe, which I'm not entirely familiar with, but I wanted to give it a try regardless. So, obviously when you think of Holy Magic, you think of Cleric. When you think of Arcane Magic, you probably lean more towards Wizard, maybe even Sorcerer. So my kind of goal with this build was to do some sort of mix of the two. So let's get into the ability scores first, because obviously the big caveat with running two different ability or spellcasters like this is the fact that you're going to have two primary spellcasting stats, which can be really, really tricky. So let's get into it. So first off, you want your wisdom at 16, going for a 14 with a +2, and then you want your intelligence as a 15 with a +1, bringing both up to 16, giving you a +3 in both. Then you want to have your constitution at 14 at the least, and then you want to bump your dexterity up to 12. Basically, we're going to need all these stats. We are going to be going for a Wizard Cleric multiclass here, and there's a really cool combination here that I think you guys are going to like. But we also obviously need Constitution for concentration and our health, and Dexterity for our AC, so we need a little bit of everything. So this, you're not going to be starting with the ultra high stats that a lot of like single casters get. Like if we were to go like with Bard or Warlock or something, we'd push our Charisma straight up to 17. But here I think this is actually going to... This is a good baseline to start with. However you want to maybe dip things, like maybe you want to bring intelligence down to 14 and go up with wisdom if you want to like focus more on the cleric stuff first. But I'm showing kind of a middle of the road option here to kind of get you started. Now, as for our starting class, I need you to trust me on this because this is super, super important. We're starting Sorcerer. Look, I know we dumped Charisma. However, this is important, and I will need to fix my stats here. We are still going to be dumping Charisma here. That has not changed. That is still the case. But why? Why are we starting with Sorcerer? Well, it's going to give us a few things. A, it's going to give us the utility cantrips that we like. Friends, Minor Illusion, Mage Hand, Blade Ward, for example. All very, very useful things that don't require our Charisma to be high. It's also going to give us Constitution saving throw proficiency, meaning that we are going to be better at maintaining concentration on our spells, which is really, really good. We're also going to get a couple of really useful utility spells here that don't require our charisma to be high, like such as Shield and Featherfall. Which Shield, you know how good it is, it's one of the best things for boosting your AC in the game, and Featherfall is a really useful traversal tool that is going to open up a lot of different options for you and your party. And then, this is again super important, we're going to be taking Draconic Bloodline here. What Draconic Bloodline is going to do is it's going to give us unarmored defense, allowing us to not need to use mage armor in order to wear robes and such. And it's going to give us a little bit of extra hit point. It's going to give us 1 extra hit point. It's not a huge deal. However, the really important thing here is our Draconic Ancestor, and it's going to give us a really important spell. We're going to be going with a White Dragon Ancestry, and we're going to be picking up the Armor of Agathis spell from this. What Armor of Agathis does is you gain 5 temporary hit points and deal 5 cold damage to any creature that hits you with a melee attack. Now, what's really important here is this is an upcastable spell, so you can cast it with as high a spell slot as you like, and it gives you more damage and hit points per level. Really, really strong. It lasts until a long rest. You don't need to maintain concentration. It's super, super good. But the main thing that's important here is the fact that this is an Abjuration spell. And we're going to get into why that's important in a minute. But we definitely, this is one of the best ways to get this specific spell, so we definitely want it. Choose scales if you want. Make sure all my stats are in order because it messed it about. And we're off to the races. So next up, you have a choice. Once you kind of do those, like basically introduce yourself to the other party members and do all the things that's going to get you to level 2 naturally throughout the game, you're going to want to pick your multi-class immediately. Now, this means you can either choose Cleric or Wizard first. And I'm personally going to suggest you take a level of Wizard first, specifically because this is going to give you access to scrolls quite early. You can go Cleric first, in which case you're going to get quite a few things like your Domain, which can be important, but I think taking at least one level of Wizard first is automatically going to open up a lot of options for you. So I'll showcase Wizard first, and then I'll showcase Cleric after. But obviously I don't do my build videos in a way where it's like, okay, you're going to take this specific level here and then this specific level here. Take them in whichever order you like. I'm just going to show Wizard first and then show Cleric after, and you can decide kind of where you want to do your levels in each class at what point of the game. So let's get started. Now that since we have all of our utility cantrips already from our Sorcerer level, we can go into our offensive cantrips here. I already have Firebolt because I am a high half-elf. This is a profile I've used a few times. So we can just grab Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, and perhaps Acid Splash here, just to have a bit of utility. Next up, we get to choose 6 spells. Magic Missile is a really, really powerful solid spell that we can get here. Grease is really good. Chromatic Orb is really good. We don't need Mage Armor because we're a Draconic Sorcerer, so we don't need to grab that. You can get the other utility spells here, such as Long Strider, which I would actually recommend, or Enhanced Sleep. You can get Ray of Enfeeblement. There's a Fine Familiar. There's a ton of stuff you can do here. Basically, just pick your favorites. I'm going to go with the selection I have chosen here. We'll take Ice Knife as well. And then you can prepare 4 of these. I'm going to prepare Magic Missile, Long Strider, Grease, and Chromatic Orb. Next up at Wizard level 2, we are going to be picking up our subclass, and this is the super important thing that we're here for. We are going with the Abjuration School. Now, the Abjuration School has a really, really interesting thing about it. It gets the ability Arcane Ward. Residual magic of your spells forms a ward around you that protects you from harm. Basically, what this does for you, this kind of does like a bit of a bad explanation. This is like a bad explanation of it here. But basically, what Arcane Ward does, I'll have the wiki page linked in the description if you want to read up on it. But basically, what this does is every time you cast an Abjuration spell, you build up this Arcane Ward that has like an intensity level that goes down by 1 each turn. For each level of intensity, you get to like reduce the damage that you take from hits. So you almost get to like tank as a wizard, which I think is really, really interesting. So even though wizards have a smaller health pool, and we have a little slightly lower constitution, you're still going to be effectively having a higher hit point threshold. And since we're mixing this with a cleric that actually likes to get into the action, this works really well here. And this is also why we wanted Armor of Agathys, because with Armor of Agathys, we now have a solid Abjuration spell that we will be casting all the time that's going to build up our Arcane Ward. Basically, you would cast it right as you're about to go into combat. So, definitely worth it. There's a couple of more things here that are good. We can grab Ray of Enfeeblement if you want. Just take anything you like here. It really doesn't matter, whichever your personal preference is. Probably anything other than False Life, because we're using Armor of Agathys for that. I'm just going to grab Burning Hands and Ray of Enfeeblement here. Yeah, I'm not going to change my prepared spells. At Wizard level 3, we're going to be getting our first level 2 spells. This is another kind of choose your favourite situation. Nothing too crazy here. I quite like things like Scorching Ray, as always. Misty Step is a good shot. Mirror Image, if you want that bit more of AC. Wizard gets a lot of spells that are really, really useful, so just take whatever you prefer. I'll probably slot these 2 in here now. Yep, and we're moving on. Next up, we are on Wizard level 4, and we are going to be getting our feat at this level. I'm just going to quickly double check my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. Nope, we're good. Okay, now obviously this is where our feat is going to be super, super important for us, because we need to kind of pick and choose what we want to focus on. I think as an ability score improvement we're going to be needing a lot of these. I definitely would suggest if you're going mainly Wizard first, you're going to want to push your Intelligence up to 18. If you're going Cleric first, push your Wisdom up to 18. Or if you've kind of maybe got a little bit of this and a little bit of that right off the bat, you could kind of go for 17-17 and then push it up to 18-18 in one foul swoop later on. But I think you should focus on one or the other first. Since I'm showcasing the Wizard side first, I'm going to quickly pump our Intelligence up to 18. We get another cantrip at this level. I will take Bone Chill just for an extra little bit of damage. We're going to get 2 more spells here at this level. I would personally pick something maybe utility-based now, like Mirror Image, or maybe See Invisibility or Invisibility. Maybe Knock. Darkness can be really good. In fact, I'm probably going to go Mirror Image and Darkness. Taking that like so. You could probably replace Grease at this level. Yep. There we go. At Wizard level 5, we're going to be getting our first level 3 spells. Obviously, Haste is a really good option here. And next to Haste, you could, if you wanted another Abjuration spell, you could go Glyph of Warding. Or Counter Spell actually is probably going to be the best option here. It's another Abjuration spell. This will allow you to, as a reaction, you know, cancel a spell that an enemy is casting, and that also adds to your Arcane Ward. So yeah, once you have your spells, you're pretty much good to go. Nothing else really to see here. I would definitely just take Haste and Counterspell, because it's going to do a lot for you. Right, and our final level in Wizard is going to be Wizard level 6, which is going to get us a few cool new things. Specifically, the Projected Ward. Now your Arcane Ward, your stacking defense buff, you can now project it onto your allies. So you can kind of tank for the whole party, which is really cool in my opinion. Definitely worth picking this up. We're also going to get a couple more spells. Take whatever you like here, it really doesn't matter, but I am going to be grabbing Lightning Bolt. This is going to be quite important for a strategy I am going to use with the Cleric side of things, so definitely will want to pick this one up. The next one can be whatever you like. I'm going to take Glyph of Warding because it is another Abjuration spell that can be used in quite a clever way if you know how to use it. So let's pop that bad boy on. There you go. Right. Now I'm going to be getting into the Cleric side of things. Like I say, if you wanted to take a couple of a couple of levels of Cleric before this point, you absolutely could have. Well, let's go look into what we can do with Cleric now. So, we're going to get 3 cantrips. Absolutely want Sacred Flame, Guidance, and probably not Thaumaturgy because we already have Friends. You could get Produce Flame if you want another source of fire damage, but yeah, the default 3, that being Resistance, Guidance, and Sacred Flame, are pretty good. Now, your domain can be whatever you like. Take whichever flavor of Cleric you prefer. It really isn't going to affect much in the long run. If you want more healing, go for Life Domain. If you want to use powerful Holy and Fire Magic, go for Light Domain. Don't pick Trickery Domain. Knowledge Domain if you want skill checks. Nature Domain if you want to do some kind of druidy stuff. War Domain if you want to play a melee fighter variant. But I would definitely go with Tempest Domain, because since we're getting our lightning spells from Wizard and such, we can actually get a lot of good uses out of the subclass feature, which we will get at level 2. But here's Wrath of the Storm. As a reaction, strike back at an attacking creature, dealing either 2d8 lightning damage or 2d8 thunder damage, and they have to make a saving throw, otherwise they take the full damage. If they save, they take half. Super cool subclass, but we're mainly going to be here for its level 2 feature, which we'll get to in a minute. I feel like now this was a part of the request. The deity is Mystra, because it makes sense. A cleric of Mystra, who is like the goddess of the weave and like the patron of wizards and clerics alike. Really thematic for this build, so just making sure I got that in there. Now, obviously, we can take whatever we really like here, but there's just a couple of things I want to point out. Sanctuary is a super powerful Abjuration spell that makes it so you cannot be harmed as long as you do no harm. So being able to basically become invincible and stack up our Arcane Ward is super strong here. Shield of Faith is also an Abjuration spell, which will buff our armor class by 2, so you can cast this in addition to Armor of Agathis and have high HP and AC, even without wearing armor, so really good. And then I would just take for typical standards. You could go for Guiding Bolt here for a nice bit of radiant damage and the ability to inflict advantage. And you could go with Bless, you could go with the healing spells. I'll take Healing Word here, just as like a little bit of bonus action healing as a treat. And next up we're going to be a Cleric 2, and for Tempest Cleric this is going to give us our most important feature, our Channel Oath feature, Destructive Wrath. When you roll Thunder or Lightning damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal maximum damage instead. So obviously the strategy with this here would be to, and since we also get an extra spell here, which we are going to be taking, the strategy here is to use Create or Destroy Water to make all of your enemies wet, therefore vulnerable to thunder damage, cast Lightning Bolt or something from, or maybe something similar from the, or Shatter maybe, from the Wizard, using Destructive Wrath to roll maximum damage. So this is a classic strategy. I'm not the first person to point this out. I just thought it was a nice synergy between Wizard and Cleric that we can get on this build. So definitely want to pick that up here. So grab Create or Destroy Water as an extra spell. Next up at Cleric 3, we're going to be getting some level 2 spells now. We automatically get Shatter and Gust of Wind because we are a Tempest Cleric, so we can grab a couple of other useful features. Now, I can't exactly remember if there are any Abjuration spells. There is Warding Bond, but nah, I don't think you need to use that. You basically kind of get this from your Arcane Ward already a little bit in a weird way. There's also Aid. Aid is an Abjuration spell that is super useful. Take Aid here. Absolutely take Aid here. It is one of the most powerful spells in the game. It just adds maximum hit points, so you can stack this with Armor of Agathis and just have a ton of HP, even with our lower constitution. Right, next up we're going to be getting our final feat of the build, and obviously we are going to want to bump our wisdom straight to 18, there is no question there. We're also going to get another cantrip. I'm going to pick Produce Flame, just because it's a nice little bit of extra fire damage that scales with our wisdom. As for your extra spell, take whatever you want. Spiritual Weapon is good, Silence is good. I'll just keep Cure Wounds on here because it's a nice extra bit of healing. And lastly, at Cleric level 5, we're going to be at max level, and we're going to get some level 3 spells from this. We are going to get Chain Lightning and Sleet Storm as part of our subclass. But now we can also grab things like Spirit Guardians, which is one of the most powerful spells in the game. You probably want to, if you wanted to get this early, obviously take the Cleric levels first. Getting this at total level 12, it probably isn't that useful by this point, but I think it's still pretty much worth grabbing. Alright, ooh, you saw it for a second, our Arcane Ward. So that is the build. There's obviously a lot going on here, but we get a ton of spells, a ton of utility, we get healing, we just get everything. We get a lot of stuff to work with, and somehow I have 2 firebolts. How has that happened? Interesting. But yeah. Overall, we're a max level caster. We get level 6 spell slots. We get Holy and Arcane Magic. We've got everything the build wants. So let's get into the equipment. With the equipment, I have the Warped Headband of Intellect here just because I quickly wanted to show it off. If you don't like the idea of having to split between Wisdom and Intelligence, you can use this, but I wanted to show that it's not a requirement to still get a pretty decent build out of this combination, so I'm going to move that over here. Instead, I would replace it with the Circlet of Hunting. Basically what this does is, you gain a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls against creatures marked by Hunter's Mark, True Strike, Fairy Fire, or Guiding Bolt, which is probably going to be your main source of radiant damage on this build. So being able to get a little, basically guarantee your attacks are going to hit with a mix of advantage and a d4 bonus, this is really good. We obviously want to keep our AC quite high, so I've got a few AC bumping pieces of equipment here. We've got the Cloak of Protection, you know it, you love it. The Braces of Defense, as long as we are not wearing armor or holding a shield, we get a +2 to our AC. And the Evasive Shoes, obviously giving us another buff to our armor class, as well as the Ring of Protection doing the same. Basically a lot of bumps to our saving throws and our armor class, giving us a total of 20 overall when everything is said and done because of Draconic Resilience. So we're getting a ton of AC, which is going to mean we're going to be able to keep up concentration a lot easier. We're using the Cat's Grace armor. It's going to bump up our dexterity that little bit extra, up to 14. And it's also going to let us gain advantage on dexterity saving checks. This is just a nice little thing if you want that little bit of extra defense. But if you don't care about that, you can also go for the Icebite robe. If you didn't want to get Armor of Agathis through Sorcerer, you could get it this way, but you can only cast it once per long rest. And the Obsidian robe, which is basically going to let you cast Hellish Rebuke and gain resistance to fire damage. There is one other thing I will point out, actually, about Armor of Agathis. You can get it as a wizard scroll, but I didn't want to just say, oh yeah, just pick up the scroll, because it is random. These are randomly generated, and there's no guarantee of when you'll get it in the game. So you'll need to kind of... But if you... You need to take Sorcerer if you want to guarantee it, but if you do manage to find a scroll of Armor of Agathis and you don't want to keep that Sorcerer level, you can get rid of that and either go to Wizard 7 or Cleric 6, or Wizard 7 or Cleric 6, your choice. Let's get into the amulet. We have the Psychic Spark. I mainly just kind of wanted to show this one off. You get an additional dart when you cast Magic Missile, so an extra bit of damage, and you get to cast Magic Missile once per long rest for free. Basically, it's just a thing you can get really, really early on. All of this equipment can be obtained in Act 1 or Act 2, so it's kind of a mid-game build. And we also get the Whispering Promise. When you heal a creature, which we can do a lot with this build, you basically give it Bless, so it gets a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws. This is pretty cool. You also get this if you heal yourself. You can give it to yourself, but you can also give it to any of your allies. So this is a weird build of healing and tanking across the whole party while still being able to do tons of lightning damage. It's pretty dang cool. Lastly, we have the Incandescent Staff. You can get this from a vendor in Act 2. It's a pretty decent quarterstaff. Obviously, we're not really going to be using it for its melee aspect because we dump strength, but you also do get a free cast of... that's where it's come from. We get Firebolt. That makes sense from the staff. But you also get Fireball, so an extra free use of Fireball is pretty good, and this is just a decent staff that you can get quite in the mid-game, so works pretty well. So yeah, here's Arcane Ward's actual in-game description. Your Arcane Ward blocks damage equal to its charges and then loses 1 charge. The casting Abjuration spells will add charges equal to the level of the spell, so yeah, that's how it works. So just a bit of extra tanking, but like I say, with the level 6 ability, you can project it onto your allies as well. So yeah, I think that's the build. There's not much else to discuss here, I don't think. So basically, the game strategy for this build is to play sort of a mage tank, using your Arcane Ward to tank damage for you and your allies, using your lightning spells to deal a bunch of damage, and then healing as well on top of it. Giving yourself a ton of hit points and temporary hit points with Aid and Armor of Agathis. And Armor of Agathis is the key that binds this all together. Super, super important for this build. But yeah, that is going to do it for me. Sorry if there was a lot of weird editing cuts in this one. I keep coughing. You can tell my voice is a little bit raspy today. I'm still not quite over COVID. But, you know, I still wanted to get this video out for everyone, so... And I wanted to fulfill this build request. I've got a couple more build requests I'm going to do, and then I think I'm going to do my first Halloween-themed build, because we're getting into the month of October, so that's going to be quite fun. But anyways, I'm going to call it here. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.